Hey guys, I'm Cecilia Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie The Green Knight. If you end up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also consider subscribing. Alright, now that the shilling is out of the way, let's talk about The Green Knight. Now, I was a little bit late on this one, and the reasoning being is that a lot of movies were sort of popping off pretty consistently with each other. And I actually just completely missed this movie initially. Uh, then I decided to sort of backtrack and catch up on this one, essentially. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So the movie starts off with a narration, pretty much indulging us that a story is about to be told. And we start cutting into a relatively slowly paced shot of a farm. Some animals just chilling for a while. And our lead character, Garwin, is awoken. And we learn that some baby is born. I guess the baby's name is Christ, but I don't think that was supposed to be a reference to like any Jesus Christ or anything. Anyway, in his state, he is pretty drunkard, and he chills, hangs out with some woman named Hasul or Hazel, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact pronunciation of her name. For simplification, I'll just call her Hazel, even though I know that's not how they pronounce it in the movie. And they proceed to get a little bit busy. And there's some weird cuts that happen after the fact with some fonts and text on the screen that pop up. It's not the first oddity, and it's definitely not the last. So anyways, we get a quick check-in from, I think it's his mother, or someone who just is close to him, as he makes his way. There's like the song that is playing as he enters this, what I described in my notes as a very knightly area. Off in the distance, however, we cut to these women who are in this tower doing some sort of summoning ritual. All the while, Garwin is being summoned by the king and is asked to sit with him, trying to mend his relationship with Garwin, as they are relatives in a sort of nephew way, I think is the familial ties, I believe, if I remember that correctly. And then, after the fact, the king starts his speech to the rest of the knights. All the while, the mother in quotes, seems to copy him phrase for phrase and starts to do some sort of, again, incantation of sorts. As the incantation finishes, the door opens, and a plant man, aka the Green Knight, moves in and gives a copy of that letter to him, or to the group, proclaiming a challenge of 1 year's time. Garwin being the one to step up immediately. So as he steps up, the Green Knight stands down, placing his axe on the floor, and Garwin proceeds to cut off the head of the creature. However, it gets back up, putting its head back on, and reassuring that in 1 year's time it will rebuke said challenge and do exactly what he had done to it. So, a sudden realization hits him, and yet he proceeds to be okay with sort of going along with this scheme of sorts. Uh, we cut to a puppet show where it shows the scene being played out by little puppets. Then we cut to him and him talking with Hazel and curious about how he feels about the sort of situation, and he sort of says and explains that he doesn't really feel like it was much of anything. Uh, and he also explains that he fears that he was not made for greatness, and but yet this great journey has been bestowed upon him. So the mother and her crew leave his side, and many prayers are sent his way as he begins to head out, traveling on horseback initially, and after a long shot of him slow galloping off, I eventually rest up for a while. And we do see a little cutaway back to some time before where Hazel asked him to stay and be with him and all that stuff. Anyway, we cut back to him at this crossroads, and he sees this skeleton and passes it and chooses one of the four paths. I'm guessing he just knows which way to go initially, or he was told at some point, I don't know. Point being, eventually he sees a young man, and the young man begins talking to him. And he talks about how he got lucky, that his mom was in some sort of situation, and that his siblings had been lost to this war, and that he's out there trying to find them. This young lad asks for a kindness. Thus, Garwin provides a coin, and proceeds to head down toward the river where this boy told him to go, and continues onward. However, he is shortly attacked not too long after, and the boy or young lad returns with the crew. So they take his gear and tie him up. The boy proceeds to take the horse and the axe and rides off. Then we get our next oddity in the movie where the camera pans. It does a complete 360, or a 180, or it does a full scope around, I should say. And when it does, when it scopes back to him, he is a skeleton, and then when it scopes all the way back, he is back to being human. I guess this is some sort of indication, some sort of warning sign of sorts, or telling us, the audience, that his fate is already sealed. I don't know. I'm trying to best case scenario that part of the movie, I guess. Anyway, he shifts back, and it shifts back, as I mentioned, and he's alive indeed. He manages to have the sword be the one thing that is remaining. He cuts himself free, but does not take the sword with him for whatever reason. After traveling now on foot, he eventually comes across a cabin, and on it, with it being late, he decides to rest. However, when he awakens, there's this young woman who talks to him, and he's a little bit freaked out. She appears to be Winifred, and she claims to have lost her head, and he's a little bit confused since she appears to have a head, though she insists that it fell into the water. So he does indeed go into the water, and the water, for whatever reason, turns red. Again, not sure if that's again another warning sign or a signifier of anything, but he finds the skull indeed. And this is the second time. I didn't write down the first time because I didn't catch it and write it the first time, but he sees this weird fox, and he sees it again. here when he comes back up and does not see the woman. However, when he returns to the cabin, the headless woman talks to him, and he gets a little freaked out, obviously, saying that the Green Knight is someone he knows. Whatever that means. And he also sees his axe has been placed there, so that's convenient. Anyway, he continues his travel, this time with the fox in tow, sort of keeping a nearby approach. The fox even gets to rest with him, and indeed, the next morning the fox starts to just follow him. As he hungers, he eats some mushrooms and freaks out and sees some a cutaway or something to signify that the Green Knight is there. And as he travels the next day, he sees a giant hand and then a head, and he goes off to the cliffside to see these giants wandering. So the world just suddenly, expanded upon just certain levels of creepiness. Now it's just like, okay, this world is just filled with stuff, some of which I'm pretty sure is unknown to us. So he yells to one and gets its attention, and the fox appears to stop it, the giant. And then, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, the camera turns, there's a flip, so it's upside down. And then there's a quick flash of a woman in a dress. Again, not sure if that is meant for anything. Anyway, Garwin falls to his knees and nearly collapses in this church-like building. We then are approached by this man, woman, and older lady, whose names I have no clue what they are, so I'll simply refer to them as such. So the man tells Garwin to just simply relax, and the woman tells him to check out some of the books, and she also claims to be a painter and wants to make a painting of him later on. She proceeds to take his trinket, the one that his soul Hazel gave him. Meanwhile, the man gives him a meal as he prepares to, for when he comes back home. And as Garwin is at the house, being with the two of them, the lady wonders why the Green Knight is green, or she knows the answer, but is proceeding to see what Garwin is going to answer, and I believe he said greed. I'm not sure 100%, but she replies that the Green Knight is green because that is what is left over when the humans leave this world, is that the Earth will still be there, essentially, is what she's essentially getting to, in a simplified version. And the man wonders if he will return with honor, and what that even means. So the older woman touches him and randomly leaves, so that was a random scene. Later out the night, the woman tempts him once more, in a very sensual session of him pretty much naked in the bed, and her asking to grab his green belt, or her green belt, that he had prior, but she has it for some reason. And the old woman was there, watching this whole situation go down. So Garwin is freaked out. So he runs off, but the man, before he leaves completely, stops him in his tracks. The man proceeding to tell Garwin that he can take something or give something, and proceeds to give him a kiss. Garwin accepts with no hesitation or no resistance, and thus returns the fox that he had somehow captured. They proceed, him, Garwin, and the fox, to get to this lake, where there's a small boat. However, before they can get on the boat, the fox starts to speak to him. After the fox's warning, Garwin yells at the fox, saying that he never wanted the fox to cop or move along with him anyway, so sort of an asshole move, but okay. Garwin then proceeds up the chapel and towards the Green Knight. Garwin proceeds to kneel toward the Green Knight and proceeds to wait. Garwin recall when the Green Knight awakens and asks what, if he had remembered in 1 year's time that what he had done, and yes, he is able to recall that he indeed cut off the head. And as Garwin is on his knees, ready to receive equal punishment, because that is what the Green Knight was going to do, he flinches in fear instead, stopping the Green Knight in his tracks. Twice over, in fact, and then, eventually, Garwin ducks out and flees in horror of the whole scene, riding his horse, riding off into the sunset, back to his days of, back to where he was. So, he once again rests with his lady, and the next day, the king passes down his sword to Garwin. Then, he is given a crown, the crown of the king. We see a cutaway to Hazel, bearing his child, and him not taking it all too well as he just sort of leaves and fucks off, and takes the hand of the red-haired woman that we saw earlier. And as this sort of montage of things are happening in complete silence, we see him sitting in battle during the plans, seeing his son die in war as he ages and is again out in the war and then dies. And him, and now his queen, the red-haired woman, and the daughter they have, are sitting as their camp area is being breached. As the area proceeds to be breached, he pulls off this green stuff from his stomach, and his head falls off. But then, we snap, and it cuts to him back in the forest, back with the Green Knight, as if none of the stuff happens after he leaves the Green Knight. And he simply takes off the belt that he had gained back because he was told that the belt would protect him, and the movie ends with the Green Knight saying, "Off with your head." And that was the Green Knight. Alright, so that was the story beats and the plot points. Yeah, this one was a little bit confusing to follow, from some of the stranger elements of this world and its world building. A little bit hard to follow. You get introduced to, say, the giant woman, and it's just there all of a sudden. For example, Garwin, his whole journey seems to be held with all of these, I assume, again, best interpretation here, warnings of his inevitable death. And it is implied very heavily that the ending is him dying still. Though the people said that he would return, so I'm not sure exactly if that is the case. Uh, Maybe the ending is a bit more open-ended, and maybe the Green Knight laughs it off and does something else. I don't know. Um, yeah, it's pretty hard to tell. Uh, and yeah, uh, it's weird as the movie seems to progress further. The character we see in the vision, anyway, seems to proceed to become more of an asshole. Is the insinuation that I was getting, which that might have just been purely uh, bad coincidence of the acting performance of that, and just the action of, whether it just be sitting in an idle pose or, uh, you know, walking out on someone, Hazel, that being a pretty asshole thing to do in general. Things of that nature. Um, and I suppose I might as well talk about it. The other thing that I know one other review brought up briefly, I'm not sure to what extent because I only heard it, but then I decided not to watch the rest of the review, and that being that Garwin uh, lays with a woman and then later on is kissed by a man, indicating some sort of LGBT representation, him being bisexual in nature. Um, and I guess, I mean, that does happen. He does accept the kiss, so I shrug. I go, okay. I really can't say much else more than that. Um, and it's weird because I thought, based on what was happening before, it seemed like the indication when I was watching the scene with him accepting the challenge, I thought that when he was given the opportunity to learn what would happen in the challenge in 1 year's time, that he would, uh, you know, injure the Green Knight in such a way that it would not be in any significant way, so that when he went to go face the Green Knight would not kill him. Again, the ending also being left, I guess, semi-ambiguous, though it does seem to lean a lot closer to him dying. Um, and again, that's only film language, and what I'm seeing from the last line of dialogue to uh, all the signs of the death that precede, when the camera does the pan thing and it's a skeleton, when he's in the forest, to the water turning red mysteriously, all of these weird things. Again, I'm not sure if that's meant to imply that he's going to die. That is just me guessing that is the movie telling us that that is the closer interpretation. It might not be the direct one, but again, I guess it still is technically left off to chance or choice of the viewer. And with that, I would probably give the movie, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. Um, I think there is some interesting stuff here. Um, Garwin isn't a perfect character by any means of the stretch, which is good. It's a good thing that their characters are flawed. With him being a drunkard in the beginning and stuff of that nature. I was expecting the fight to last a little bit longer, if I'm being completely honest, or Garwin's reactions to the Green Knight initially, that whole scene was gonna last a little bit longer. Because again, I had that sort of preconceived notion as I was watching. I was like, oh, he's gonna try to like, you know, give it a little scar or something. Um, but no, it definitely goes in a whole other direction. Uh, and there's still some uh, pretty mysterious stuff about the world. Um, again, the giants that are just roaming. Um, the woman with the missing head, and then talking and mystics and all that nature stuff, or magical stuff, I should say. Um, again, leaves the world a little bit curious. I won't say it's necessarily a bad way. It's just I think there's a little bit left to be desired there. Maybe, perhaps. Anyway, I would still give it a 6 out of 10. Um, and with that being said, that is where I will end my review. And if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated, and also consider subscribing. I'm so close to hitting that 200 subscriber milestone, and I'm just aching to get there, baby. So until next time, everyone, bye-bye.